Coming up on Jerusalem Dateline, massacre in Syria with over 1,000 Druze and Christians killed by pro-regime militias around Suwaida, with Israel continuing airstrikes on behalf of the victims, and intensifying the fighting in Gaza with the hopes of bringing the war to a close. Plus, providing safe haven for Jewish people. How has Hungary managed to push back against the anti-Semitism spreading across Europe? All this and more coming up on this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Julie Stahl. The ceasefire in Syria is on the brink of collapse, with Druze and Christian civilians being massacred in Suwaida. Meanwhile, with Gaza's ceasefire talks stalled and pressure mounting on both sides, international voices are growing louder, and so is the fight over facts on the ground. Chuck Holton brings us this story.
In Syria's Suwaida province, the ceasefire is rapidly deteriorating. Over 1,000 civilians have been killed, mostly Druze, but also Christians. Among the dead, Pastor Khaled Mazer of the Good Shepherd Evangelical Church, murdered along with his entire extended family by pro-regime jihadist militias in Suwaida. The atrocity has mobilized outrage across Israel's 150,000-strong Druze community, many of whom are demanding action.
I can't stay still watching my relatives, my people being slaughtered without doing anything. I know I don't have military experience, but at least I would do what the minimum I can do to help my people.
Israel has responded with emergency medical aid, and they've also continued sporadic airstrikes in defense of the beleaguered Druze in Suwaida. But Muslim countries like Turkey are condemning Israel's involvement.
I want to say this once again, clearly and plainly. Israel is a lawless, ruleless, unprincipled, spoiled, indulged, and frenzied terrorist state.
In Judea and Samaria, U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee visited the Christian village of Taibe this weekend in the wake of a fake news report that fires damaged the ancient church and cemetery. In the midst of the controversy, the ambassador offered words of reconciliation to Jews and Arabs.
Solidarity with the people who just want to live their lives in peace, to be able to go to their own land, to be able to go to their place of worship.
Settler leaders argue that accusations of violence are often distorted and that Jewish communities are frequently under siege.
The Jewish communities of Judea and Samaria are victimized constantly, bombarded constantly by Arab terrorism and violence. In response, the level of violence perpetrated by Jews, although it is unfortunately not zero, and it should be, and we're working on getting it to zero, it is so small as to be off the charts. In comparison to the number of people in the population, it's something like 0.056.
Pressure is mounting on Hamas to accept a ceasefire deal already approved by Israel. The U.S. Special Envoy for Hostage Affairs, Adam Boehler, is calling on the group to take the deal and release the remaining hostages. At the same time, global calls for a permanent end to the war are intensifying, with New Zealand's foreign minister joining 28 countries in backing an immediate halt to the conflict.
The only way forward is an immediate, unconditional and permanent ceasefire. Human suffering is indiscriminate. Further bloodshed serves absolutely no purpose, and therefore it must stop.
On the ground in Gaza, civilians continue to face harsh conditions as fighting escalates in Deir al-Balah.
We woke up in the morning like every time, wanting to prepare something for our children. Suddenly, they had written an evacuation notice. They're asking for 2,000 shekels to leave. The situation is really very difficult.
Israeli officials argue that increased military pressure is the only viable path to both ending the war and bringing hostages home. But the battle for public perception is raging far beyond the battlefield. In Judea and Samaria, reports last week claimed Jewish settlers had attacked a historic church in the Christian village of Taibe. Yet a newly released police report says no damage occurred, and eyewitnesses say the story doesn't hold up under scrutiny.
So the Israeli police just confirmed what we found yesterday. This piece, in my opinion, is another hit piece by the anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian movement to delegitimize Israel and make the Jews look like some sort of, equal to Hamas kind of radical groups.
Waller says even the Palestinian bishop at the site admitted the narrative didn't match the facts.
I said, I came and I walked in, I said, that's not what happened. He said, but that's what could have happened. I said, but that's not what happened. The church did not burn.
From disputed battlefield claims to disproven headlines, the war over truth is running parallel to the war on the ground. From Jerusalem, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
This week highlighted the information war that surrounds so many events in Israel. Regarding the alleged damage to the ancient church in Taipei, a police report came out stating there was no damage to the holy site, only a fire limited to an adjacent open area. U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee also said on social media, "I have not attributed the cause of the fire to any person or group, as we don't know for sure. The press has. I have said that regardless, it was a crime and deserves consequences." Here's a video put out by the Benjamin Regional Council's Eliana Passantine on what did and didn't happen at the site of the ancient church in Taipei.
So I've been getting phone calls from Christian friends all over the world about the Jews, the Israeli settlers, burning down a church in Taipei. I know that church. I have my master's in archaeology. I remember it's a Byzantine church. Let's go see how one burns down an ancient church made of stone. So we're walking in. I don't see any signs of a fire. I don't see a church burned down. Here I am in the outskirts of the church. You can see the apse over here. And even on the outskirts or the outer walls, there are no signs of fire. I can't find any. So it doesn't look like the church has been burned down. But not far from the church, there was shrub that was most probably burnt in the fire. This happens all over Judea and Samaria. You can see that these stones would have stopped the fire. And I still believe it's important to find out who set the fire. So who has the interest to display this bonfire as the settlers burning down the church? Someone is behind this. The Jews are burning down the church. Someone has an interest for you to believe that. If someone were to burn down a church and it happened in our jurisdiction, we would make sure to put an end to it immediately. But that is not what happened. And when I get a phone call from our Christian friends saying, "How could you guys let that happen, burn down a church?" I said, "Well, what are you imagining?" And they're imagining a wood structure and that the settlers came in and threw a torch in and set it to fire. This is an ancient archaeological site. I have very much respect for it. But even if I tried my hardest, there's no way to burn it down. So not only is that not what happened, but it makes a great story. And when you have enough funding and you can spread the word, everyone believes it. So I'm here to reach out to our Christian friends who know us and believe in us. We are the guardians of the biblical heartland. This land was given to us by God. There is no reason for us to burn a church or to disrespect anyone else's religion. We do not do that. But we will find the truth. We will find out who put a fire to those fields, and they will pay the consequences.
Coming up, how has Hungary become a country where Jews feel respected and safe? As the threat of possible anti-Semitic attacks continues throughout the world, one place Jews and Israelis appear to feel safe is Hungary. We visited Budapest recently during the CPAC conference, and after speaking with Europeans, found out some of the reasons why people feel relaxed there, free to express their Jewish and Israeli identity. German parliamentarian Dimitri Schulz openly wears a Jewish yarmulke or kippah in Budapest, although he doesn't feel comfortable doing it back in Germany.
Oh, it's not possible in public to wear a kippah. It's possible, but it's very dangerous, yeah? Yeah. And I have family, I have kids, so I need to think about the safety first. Just wearing at home in the synagogue, that's it.
That's because Schultz, his family and friends have experienced blatant anti-Semitism.
The most are coming from the Islamic side and the second one from the left side.
During a recent trip to Europe, Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar expressed his gratitude to Germany and Austria for standing with Israel.
I want to thank Germany and Austria for standing by Israel in Europe and on world stage.
Scholz's bigger concern, however, is feeling that the German government ignores the anti-Semitic problem inside the country.
They still say it comes from the right side, but I never experienced anti-Semitism from the right side. This is the dangerous point. It is not allowed to talk about it, that it's from the Islamic, from the left, or from the imported anti-Semitism.
Belgian parliamentarian Sam Van Rooij says of the 150 members of his country's parliament, only 5 are considered pro-Israel, with a big proportion seen as anti-Semitic.
If they can say now that the Jews in Israel are the new Nazis, then they can get rid of their guilt feeling from the Holocaust. That is one of the main drivers. Another driver is, of course, also they want the votes from leftist people and from the Muslim groups in our society.
Van Rooij points to a rapidly growing Muslim population, which in major cities like Brussels can represent as much as 40% of the population.
Jews get attacked every day in the streets of Antwerp and Brussels, mostly by Muslims, young Muslims, Muslim gangs. And many Jews, they hide now their identity. They hide their kippah, they hide their Star of David, and they really think of leaving the city and also the country even.
Van Rooij describes himself as an Israel lover and has visited many times.
I want to protect our Jewish community because they're part of our tradition and our culture. To all the people that don't understand, I tell them, listen, even if you don't care for the Jews or for Israel, do it then for yourself, because Islamic Jihad is targeting the Jews first, but the Christians and all the rest next.
Hungary is also one of the world's strongest supporters of Israel. 10 years ago, Prime Minister Viktor Orban spoke against the influx of Muslim migrants into Europe. Many said they were fleeing the civil war and also the rise and rule of ISIS. While Hungary closed its borders, Germany alone received around 1 million asylum seekers, with millions more crossing into other European countries. Now many of those people are causing problems.
As Hungary stopped illegal migration, and Hungary is a migrant-free zone in Europe. We don't have any pro-Palestine movements. We do not have Palestine flags on the buildings. But Hungary stands with Israel at the international level, and we are protecting Jewish culture, Jewish security at the everyday level as well.
CPAC Hungary chairman Miklos Santo says there's a Jewish renaissance here in Hungary, and Jewish people can feel free to keep their traditions. That's not the case, though, in much of Western Europe.
The mayor of Berlin himself, a few months ago, he's a social democrat guy. He's no anti-Semite at all. But with a goodwill, he advised the Jewish people of Berlin not to wear kippahs.
According to Santo, many European politicians don't protect the Jewish people while passively supporting anti-Zionist movements for political gain.
There is a large, millions of citizens in France, in Germany, etc., with a migration background, mostly from Arab or Muslim countries, and those are votes. Votes for the leftist and, the center-right parties, and they do know that if they would back Israel heavily and support Israel, they would lose.
Hungarian Rabbi Jonathan Megeri believes people need to stand up for what they believe and fight darkness with light.
What does it mean on a practical level? The practical level is you got to fight identity or strong radical Muslim identity with even stronger Jewish and Christian identity. If you're a Christian, you got to strengthen your Christian identity. You got to stand up, and you have to be proud of your heritage.
Megeri says, with Judeo-Christian values and identity under attack, there's only one solution.
Well, you got to put God above yourself. You got to put your goals and your family ahead of yourself. And you got to work for the country, your homeland that you live in.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Budapest, Hungary. Still ahead, Dr. Robert Pacienza from Coral Ridge Ministries calls out some Christians for not making a stand for Israel.
While Hungary may not have a problem with anti-Semitism, many other nations do. For instance, it's a rising crisis in the U.S. The head of one of America's largest Christian ministries argues people of faith need to fight back. Our Paul Strand spoke with Pastor Robert Pacienza.
We're talking to Dr. Robert Pacienza, head of Coral Ridge Ministries. Doctor, you put out a big statement the other day condemning rising anti-Semitism, especially in America. What happened in these incidents? What was said in these incidents that really shocked you and appalled you?
Well, I think we've been seeing it for some time now. And I think what's appalling, when we saw the attacks in Colorado, I'm just reminded that this is not a battle against flesh and blood. This is really a clash of worldviews. And it's really the progressive left doing everything possible, whether it's the rising anti-Semitism that we see in our institutions of higher education or mainstream media, or the people just going off on social media. I saw very few Christians actually speaking out against it. So it wasn't like anti-Semitism hasn't been here for a long time, but I was thinking to myself, where are the Christians, particularly the Christians that have long supported Israel, both here in America and abroad, really standing up and speaking out against the rising anti-Semitism that we're continuing to see in these riots, in these provoked attacks against innocent people that are standing for truth and standing for peace in the Middle East. And I just really felt like we needed other men and women of God to speak out and to really condemn the violent acts.
The things I was thinking about these two latest incidents, there was the murder of the young couple in Washington, D.C., where the alleged killer was yelling out "Free Palestine," and the guy who was firebombing the group of old Jewish people in Colorado, he was yelling out that he wanted to kill all Zionists. So it does seem like something has been sort of unleashed. It seemed like anti-Semitism in America for a long time was much more quiet. It was like, well, we're not going to let them into the country club, or we're not going to give this guy a higher position in the company. Do you think that's one of the main problems now, is that it just seems to be becoming so much more blatant?
Absolutely. And not to be repetitive, but it really is a clash of worldviews. I really do think the progressive left is doing everything possible to rid the public square, including here in America, of the Judeo-Christian worldview. And I think we see it all around. And so I think you're seeing this anger rising, the hatred that it's becoming much more explicit because they want no semblance of the God of the scriptures. They want no semblance of the Judeo-Christian worldview that has shaped Western civilization for thousands of years. And I think they will do everything possible, even now turning to blatant violence, in order to rid the public square and to rid America in particular of a worldview that's grounded in biblical truth.
Wow. In your press release, you mentioned something that George Washington said way back at the start of America, and that seemed to suggest that there was such a different attitude towards Jewish people in the country. Can you recall at all what you said in that press release about what Washington said to a Jewish synagogue?
Yeah, Washington wanted to make it very clear that he called the Jewish people the stock of Abraham, and he said that with all due respect. He said that the stock of Abraham would be safe, that they would be able to seek refuge here, and that no one would cause them harm as they settle in this new world and experience the same freedom that he wanted all Americans to experience in this land. And the reason I went back to Washington is sometimes you get the feeling that this pro-Israel stance, I think a lot of people think that it's some modern phenomenon, that America started standing with Israel in the 1940s. But I wanted to remind people that it's actually inherently American to stand with Israel. Not only is it important for Christians to stand for Israel, but all Americans to stand with Israel. This is what it means to be American, that even our founder, George Washington, when you read through his journals and read through his writings, he longed for the Jewish people to seek refuge and protection in the New World. world, but he also talks about in his writings the longing for Israel to return as a nation state. I don't think a lot of people understand that. Back in the 1700s, he was thinking about how do we restore the state of Israel and restore the Jewish people to their homeland. So it's inherently Christian and inherently American to stand with Israel.
When we come back, the inspiring story of Kibbutz Nirim and how CBN partners are helping them rebuild.
Kibbutz life is unique to the Jewish state and part of the foundation of the country, and it's the lifeblood of southern Israel. But that very existence of the kibbutzim near Gaza came under threat on October 7th when Hamas terrorists crossed into Israel and began a kidnapping and killing spree. The members of Kibbutz Nirim experienced the carnage of that day. Most were evacuated and are now moving back after nearly 2 years, rebuilding their lives and physical community. And it's thanks in part to the help of CBN partners. Take a look.
5 people were killed here. 5 friends of the community were killed. 5 were abducted. 3 women that were abducted, they were returned, and 2 others were killed in Gaza. We had 30 houses that were burned down.
The kibbutz experienced a few miracles, but also suffered loss, and many of the buildings sustained severe damage as a result of the fighting that took place there. Residents were evacuated and are only now allowed to return.
Growing from the trauma, and we're growing from what happened to us, what happened to our neighbors. But we have to build, and we have to be strong, and we have to think about the future. What it gives us real hope is to see the resilience of these communities. They want to come back, and they want to rebuild not only their lives, but the community life.
CBN Israel staffers have visited Nirim and spent time with the residents, listening to their stories and observing the initial devastation and now the rebuilding process.
So CBN would like to cover the costs of this rebuilding, including the store, the grocery store. If we can even in just some way be a part of that and come alongside you, it's a tremendous privilege to us. It's a blessing to us to be able to just be a part of it.
The dining room is the heart and soul of the kibbutz. And now that the store is going to be there, so it's going to be a magnet. We're going to be coming back to live here. Gaza's not going anyplace. People are going to want to move here. Not only the people who lived here before. Unfortunately, there's people that won't be coming back. Community builds resilience. Without community, you don't have kibbutz. We're hoping to be able to come back within a few months. It's going to take years to heal.
Members of Kibbutz Nirim are looking ahead to returning to their homes and becoming a community once again, a crucial element of their healing process.
This is the dining room. After October 7th, the old dining room was destroyed. There wasn't a safe room inside. Here in this area, you have between 0 and 10 seconds to run for shelter. We received an amazing gift. So we're going to have a beautiful place. It's been constructed with the help of CBN, place to gather together in Chagim, Shabbatot, cook as a community and eat together.
When I was in the States, I was brought over to be the guest of honor at the Washington Correspondents' Dinner by CBN. I don't know where we would be if this relationship had not developed in this way. I really don't. But today, I truly, truly know that the Christian community around the world has our backs. And that just gives us so much inspiration and strength. Once the community comes back, once I can wake up in the morning and hear the children laughing outside on their way to school, that will be my victory.
That's all for this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Thanks for joining us. And please, keep praying for this tumultuous part of the world and for the peace of Jerusalem, that God would thwart the plans of evil men and that his justice would prevail. And as always, that all the hostages would come home safely and soon. We leave you now with some scriptures. Psalm 46 verse 1 says, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in time of trouble. And as Psalm 121 tells us, the God who watches over Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. I'm Julie Stahl. For all of us here at the Jerusalem Bureau, we'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.